When I saw this series, at the end of it, I just thought, my God, what a journey it was, right? And this show explores this entire controversy surrounding the mystic Osho, formerly called as Bhagwan Rajneesh, and his former secretary Ma Anand Sheila. It was this riveting, gripping, uncomfortable, raw, wild, and yet so interesting that I couldn't stop watching this 6 episodes back to back. I kind of felt compelled to, talk about it. And I felt that Osho's teaching and philosophy was way ahead of our times, very futuristic, very unabashed, so to speak. And I feel, as human beings, whenever we are faced with a thinker who is way ahead of our times, uh, I think humanity feels challenged and might even try to bring them down. That's one thing I thought. I thought of Galileo, from pelting him with stones to suppressing him to discovering his genius only 1 century later. Or even in the case of Jesus Christ, from admiration to admonition to finally crucifixion and all of that, right? Like we've had Mahatma Gandhi going through that journey of, being mocked to people trusting him to emulating him and finally assassinating him. I feel that every leader, so to speak, does have a kind of, not every leader, many leaders have this kind of a polarizing personality where 50% of the audience will be strongly supporting them, and 50% will be very repulsed and revolting against, so to speak. In the case of Osho, I could see that, we all could see when we watched the series, where he was purposefully uh, arousing controversy through the things that he would say, right? And this character, Sheila, right? Uh, at the end of the show, you're kind of left wondering whether to hate her or to admire her. I didn't really approve of the crass measures that she took, or that kind of atrocious misuse of power as that spokesperson of that Rajneesh Foundation. But the show actually gave a perspective into the intention that in her mind it was justified, because she thought it's all an effort to protect her beloved Bhagwan, as she would call him. um, and you could see this interesting dynamic, this kind of this love affair of sorts that left both Sheila and Osho broken after the whole ordeal. And as Osho would say, love affairs never end, they just become hate affairs. That's something that he says in the show. And though he condemned her in public, and she was exonerated from the ashram, uh, you know she felt that he loved her, and she felt that she loved him, and she felt that that love affair went on, even though it took a different turn later, right? And I could see the gray areas of human personality, and I told myself that at the end of the day, human beings are complex beings, very unpredictable, right? And but some interesting things I noted was that daring courage of Osho to be himself despite that criticism. And I felt he broke the generational stereotype of what a guru can be like, right? The image of a guru, he broke that stereotypic image. He was a master who was not ashamed of owning 19 Rolls Royce or even a diamond watch, for that matter. A master who couldn't ask his followers, he never asked his followers to suppress their human sexuality, but he dared to say, celebrate your sexuality, it makes you divine. He had the guts to say that, and that was juicy for media controversy, yes. But I admire the guts of that man to be so brave and express himself and his views. And somewhere I felt that India missed a genius in this man. When Indian government banished him, it made Rajneesh and his followers seek refuge to practice their way of life in the United States of America, in that town called Antelope, right? In that place called Oregon, where they built this dream city called Rajneeshpuram from scratch. And every cult has this glorious beginning and an ugly end, and so did this one. From when Osho was deported from USA, he comes back a full circle back to India. And maybe his soul was pining to die in this country, maybe. uh, he in Pune, he finally continued to teach, and he leaves his body shortly after that. They did indulge in some questionable experiments, like that kind of the poisoning, food poisoning episode that took place, and I do not defend them. The law did ensure the justice, but with evident loopholes. It was a historical moment. That's what I felt. I felt this was a uh, historical movement that was captured on the show, and it is a piece of history that we cannot forget. Right? I thoroughly enjoyed this whole journey of making of the master. The birth of that utopian dream civilization that they speak about, and stood to witness to its breaking back into shambles. It's also a lesson of what irrevocable power can do to a human like Sheila, and how a cult grows and makes humans behave in ways that they wouldn't in their rational sense. And a cult is more not only an external group, but I could see where a cult was becoming an internalized experience, and it is a spectacular reflection of the human psyche, and a summary of where the human consciousness is as a collective during our time. And what it also tells us what we are ready to hear as a society and what we are not ready to hear. So I think it was an experiment with consciousness, and parts of it were a miserable failure and parts of it was a booming success. And that's what I felt about Osho and his whole movement, right? That's my rant about the show. But I would like to hear from you guys. How was your viewing experience? Anyone would like to share?
I have few questions. Is it okay?
Yeah.
I mean, does that show that when Sheila left, that Osho went against her and he tried to justify by saying that he never loved her. But actually, was it a love relation, love hate? I mean, what was it actually? All of a sudden, she left, and that the turning point was very difficult. Well, what was it actually?
So what did you feel? What was the non-verbal that you observed in the screen? Did you observe any non-verbal dynamic between the two?
About Sheila, yes, but Osho was not there. I mean, pictorially, he was not shown so much. I mean, I know I could not. That part was confusing. Like I thought, I mean, was it that how his entire thing fall? I mean, it fall apart because after she left. So that is what I don't know. I was just thinking. I don't know.
There is something called there is a personality type called a cult personality. Okay.
Okay.
So a cult personality is a charismatic leader who will receive your projection of what an ideal is, right? Ideal leader, ideal lover, ideal friend, whatever that is, right? So I'm just muting people so that there's no noise, background noise. Yeah. So there is this cult figure personality. Uh, it's more of a social dream or social projection of what they want, what an individual ideally desires a master to be, and that person is just echoing that back, and that person is willing to receive those projections. It's actually a mass hysteria of expectations, unfulfilled expectations being projected on one man. Okay. And that one man was willing to stand by that uh, projections of people and was mirroring it back to them. So when hundreds of people, thousands of people are actually yearning for some authority figure to give them permission to express their sexuality, he said, that's what you require and I'll be that. And if somebody sat for meditation thinking about sex, he would say, I give you the permission to go and explore this for yourself, and then you come and sit and meditate if you want. Right? I mean, nobody else had the guts to do that. And with regards to the dynamic with Sheila, well, you could see that he was aware of her fascination with him, right? She was so much in awe of him. She was so fascinated by him, and he didn't discourage that. Over the years, he never discouraged that. He kept receiving that.
Yeah.
Now, what, I don't know what you would call that. I don't know if you would call that love. I don't know if you would call that allowance. I don't know if you would call that misleading her or giving her false hope. Whatever that is, he was being that, right? It is gray. It's not black and white. The entire series I felt is very gray, because at the end of the whole show, you, all of those, now view that entire episode from the perspective of the people. That's one very awesome thing they did. They interviewed the people, right? The followers, right?
Mhm.
So after the breakdown of the cult, after the death of the so-called God man or the master or the enlightened one, that's a social projection, isn't it? At the end of it, their disillusionment is captured. It's like many of them will go through that entire denial, right from saying that even though there was evidence to the controversies, there was evidence to misuse of power, there were evidence of breaking the law, people could not agree to it. People could not accept the fact that these breaches of law were done, these breaches of, misuse of power was done, right? People could not acknowledge it, because to them he was also this master, the metaphorical messiah, so to speak. He was also the person who gave them the permission to come out of their own psychological ruckus that they were stuck in. So that ambiguity is what the followers had to deal with. Now, this is a person that I love, and recent evidence suggests that this person is also a criminal. Now, that happens to a lot of gurus, a lot of godmen. That happens to the followers of a lot of godmen who face the disillusionment once they kind of exit a cult. Because a cult gives you a lot of things. A cult gives you meaning, a manufactured purpose. A cult gives you a sense of family, a sense of belonging. And only those people get attracted to a cult who are seeking acceptance themselves, who feel like outsiders in the mainstream society. They are the ones who gravitate towards a movement which is like a cult. Now, how do you differentiate from a social movement with a cult? A cult has a pyramidal hierarchy. A cult has one man, dictatorial man on the top, who's a charismatic leader figure whose authority is unquestioned. Whereas in a democracy or in a different kind of a, like a, if you look at an organization, a corporate organization, there is a board, there are checks and balances over the powers of the CEO, right? And most of the heads are, if you see in a democracy, they're elected heads. Their powers are given by the people, and there are also checks and balances on the leadership. Whenever in a group there is unquestioned leadership, say everybody believes he is God, and he kind of gets metaphysical authority or divine authority, there is 99% chance that there could be misuse of power in one way or the other. And that leadership on the top, that cult figure or that messiah, may not even be aware of it, may not even intend it, but the more and more the social projection of his godhood is projected on him, deeper is the shadow self of such a master remains hidden and unacknowledged. Okay, so on one hand you see a very divine enlightened personality, on the other hand there is also a very abusive and a very power hungry and a highly narcissistic personality in the same person. And those who are close to him, like as close as Sheila, they were able to spot the dark side also. Sometimes, and like even masters who are deemed masters, who are deemed enlightened, they don't realize, they do not integrate that shadow aspect of themselves, and that shadow personality does a spiritual abuse on the followers, which leaves scars for many years, because they have to deal with the ambiguity of the love hate relationship that later gets built up. So I looked at a lot of cult dynamics here. I looked at a lot of shadow aspects here. And with regards to your question, Dipali, did the man love her? I think yes. I think yes.
So basically, he was a narcissist type of a person, or he basically, and you rightly said that at times people don't know, the leaders don't know what's happening, or they don't intend to, because for 4 years they said, na, ki he's not there in the picture. And when Sheila went, he all of a sudden came out. So was he knowing what Sheila was doing? And it like everything was not said, but
He
yeah,
knew.
he
In the
knew.
show, he knew. He kind of
He
knew it.
knew.
That's what she said.
Okay. So basically, he was accepting it, what she was doing it. So
He
that's
Well,
what.
encouraged her.
she becomes the scapegoat, isn't it?
Yeah.
She becomes the scapegoat. Like she was the fall guy, so to speak, right? So she was a fall guy. If things went bad, he could point a finger at her, and if things went good, obviously it's glory for him.
Yeah. So that is what the dark side you're talking about here. Yeah.
Not only that,
Yeah, many
well,
more. Yeah. Now I can understand this.
and this is not only about Osho, right? I mean, this is not to take away the Deepali. I'm muting you because there's a lot of noise from your end.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and this is not to take away his amazing insights. I mean, Osho has given beautiful, brilliant insights about love, about life, about relationships, about seeking, about spirituality. So many messages that if you read, it will touch your heart and it'll make you think, it'll make you question social structure, and it'll actually give you a different perspective. Yet, you also have to acknowledge that the man was abusive in many ways within the same person. That is a dichotomy that we often face within ourselves. That is a dichotomy we face in people whom we love also. That is a ambiguity that we have to deal with in every kind of leadership. Oftentimes it happens that when somebody sees that dark side that they cannot digest, they will try to assassinate that personality, which happened in the case of Mahatma Gandhi and Nathuram Godse, right? So yeah.
So in this scenario, this whatever Sheila, she saw his dark side after she left him, or she could, yeah, she could see it before. Maybe, yeah, that's the reason she left him. So
It's
many questions.
difficult to say. It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because it could have also been that she kind of knew it all along, right? So yeah, Deepali, thank you for your question and for your insights. Anything else you wish to share, Deepali?
I too have so many questions when I was watching it, because they tried to convey a lot, but yeah, it was very subtle. So I just was thinking, good. I was very excited when you said we were going to talk about this movie, because there is still so much.
There's
Until
still
like in
some.
the beginning, also, when people, they were not disturbing the people around, but the people felt that their freedom is being lost and all. So, I mean, if you look at that other side, you would feel, no, they were not disturbing. And I don't know. So that is individual. I mean, maybe it's, yeah, and so much was shown in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Sanjeev, I have a question here.
Yes.
Rajeshwari. What the question that came across was usually when such a thing happens, the leader somewhere takes the blame. But isn't it the fact that all the followers did contribute hugely in creating that whole cult itself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see, you see, any cult leader is an indicator of social dysfunction. Every godman in the country is an indicator of dire need for mental health support. Every single godman is a reflection of handicap in the mental health of the society. So if India, on one side, we say India's very rich spiritually and we have so many godmen, we also have so many desperate people unable to solve their problems. It's a direct correlation because if you look at developed countries, many developed countries, Scandinavian countries, the number of churches they have is very less. The number of churches that are churches and the following is high in countries where there is a lot of struggle. Okay, so yes, definitely the people are to be blamed also equally. But the thing about mob, the thing about the mass hysteria is, when you, if you were there at that time, you would have also joined that cult, and you might have also, without thinking twice, pledged your property to that organization without thinking twice, because that's the level of a pull that a cult can have on a person. And I speak from personal experience. i have been I have been in not one but two cults. Like I was closely associated in an ashram where there was a guruji and everything, and we really followed everything he said, and I kind of did my BSc there. And it's only after I passed out, later, when I looked at the social controversies that were there around him, and when I heard personal accounts of people, personal tales of abuse in that place, I realized that there were a lot of dark things happening. And I personally went through this whole disillusionment, because this Guruji stood for all the good things, very closely tied to my own identity. And the moment I realized that, oh shit, this man has been doing damage to people, I had to confront that ambiguity within myself. And I could really empathize with the followers of Osho, because I've been there in my own life also, right? So yeah, Rajeshwari, I think people share responsibility.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not taking the blame of the cult leader, but when such a thing is playing again and again in society, is it? I was just wondering if it is some form, some way, consciousness is trying to evolve through such examples where people really learn to choose. I don't know if that makes sense. Because you just choose followership as a way of evolution, and then since you have evolved enough, you just get out of it, and that's
Maybe,
probably
maybe,
that's, that's
maybe.
it.
There's no
And
way to say that for sure, is it?
yeah, there's no sure.
What exactly is a marker? What exactly is an indicator of social evolution? Is it education? Is it the tolerance to diversity? Is it the tolerance to life and the stressors of life? If so, suicide rates should be coming down in the country. If so, the level of aggressive saffronization that's happening in India shouldn't be happening. If we are really that evolved, should we really be having fanaticism going on in the name of religion and consciousness? So, are we really evolving? Is my question.
See, evolution. Okay, my my take on evolution is a little different. Like, it need not always be that linear that we're just progressing straight to the goal. To be around, and maybe these are ways around that consciousness is doing it. But
Maybe. But at the end of the day, aren't these tales that we tell to pacify ourselves rather than look at the darkness of existence? Well, there is a part of society that's dark. There is a part of society that's, there is a part of religion that's dark. There's a part of every spiritual group that's dark. And the more we are in denial of it, we risk this thing called toxic positivity. Okay, so, what is toxic positivity? Toxic positivity is this propaganda that, oh, I should always think positive, I should always be happy. It leads people to push under the carpet feelings of negativity, feelings of sadness, feelings of hurt, feelings of anxiety. Push it under the carpet and try to be happy. Oh, I want to attract good things, so I need to think positive. But no, those emotions are right there inside of you, right? So, it's not black and white. I agree with you. We can't say we are not de evolving either. And I will be skeptical to say that we have evolved. I think we are on the verge of realizing that existence is gray, and human beings can be gray. Not very easily black and white. If the consciousness is trying to teach us some lesson, I would look at this. That's what I am learning. My personal lesson is every master is gray, every human being is gray. Nothing is really black and white. That's my learning.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, yeah, somewhere I just feel that it's overall a contribution, and each individual here is to share these contributions. That's my.
Okay,
That's it.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, like,
Can I go off on a tangent?
Yeah, okay.
So, cult is, as I understand, is where a person gets identified with a cult because they feel this is what I am and things like that. So, I listen to Sadhguru a lot, and my daughter thinks that's a cult. And in fact, even Sadhguru has said that, a lot of people think this is a cult and this. But he actually says the moment you identify yourself with something, you're boxing yourself. You are saying, I am this. So you are limiting yourself, and the moment you start identifying yourself, you are setting limitations on yourself. So don't identify, don't say, like today I was talking to a friend, and there's something, and I was telling, you should eat brown rice, and he says, no, I'm not a rice eater. So I said, but why are you saying that? Why don't you even experiment? Because of he had some problem or whatever. So it's like you are saying, okay, you put limiting beliefs on yourself, or you put limitations on yourself, saying this is what I am. So he actually says, don't identify yourself with anything. Don't say I'm this, I'm that. Just keep yourself open. So in a way, while a lot of people may think it's a cult, he actually says don't identify yourself. Where
Correct.
would you put that?
Correct. Every cult leader will tell you this is not a cult. Okay. Now, just tell me one thing. If I stand on a stage, okay, I'm standing on a stage. I mean, the arrangement of a gathering. Let us say we all have a gathering. Okay. Now there are two ways to make the arrangement here. Either we all are in a circle, right, and everybody is speaking, or everyone gets a turn to speak. Maybe one is an elected leader playing a moderator. This is one room of a gathering. Now, in another room of a gathering, let us say I am on the stage and all of you are seated down, and I call myself Sadguru, or I call myself a guru. Now, I have not told you to become a follower, but the very fact that the seating arrangement is that when I will be the only one talking in this room and you all will be listening, and you all will not get a chance to counter me, counter question me, and you see a mass hysteria of people folding hands to me. And I'm asking you not to have an identity, but I will keep an identity of a guru and I will call myself a Sadguru. What is the unspoken identity I'm giving you? When you compare to the other room, what is the power dynamic here? Isn't this a pyramidal hierarchy? I'm not saying every pyramidal hierarchy is a cult, but I'm just pointing out that if I call myself a teacher, inherently what am I implying about you?
That you are a student
That
or
you are
a
a student.
follower.
I don't, and I keep calling myself a teacher, and I keep telling you don't have an identity, don't have an identity. That doesn't make sense, isn't it?
No, but then it's like even a teacher is always a student, and a student could be a teacher to someone else. So by saying, he does say that you need to have a guru, and all of us have grown up having teachers. So what is wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you identify it as by one person adopting an identity. There is a subliminal message given to the other person of your identity.
Mm,
If I call myself a teacher in this space, I am implying that you are a student.
mm,
If I
okay.
call myself a Sadguru, I am implying that you are what is that? The complementary part of a guru, which is a shishya, maybe.
Mm,
Right? If I call myself a Sadguru, you are my shishya. So you remain you. The message given is that you are a student. Now,
mm,
student is okay, but what if other students around you start telling you tales of my divinity?
mm,
How are you going to start seeing me? How will you see me? And if you see that when I walk in, thousands of people fold their hands. Now, you don't believe in a cult following, you don't believe in godmen, let's say, but as a interpretation, what are you going to interpret? You are in a gathering and say thousands of people are folding their hands when they see me, and you hear tales of my miracles, you hear tales of my divinity. I'm not saying about Sadhguru in particular, I am saying about any and every godman in this country. And I'm not against godmen either, but I'm just looking at the power dynamics here. What is the unspoken dynamic? Is it a democratic gathering where people are getting together? Is he an elected leader? Is the leadership chosen by the people? And do the people get to disagree with the leadership?
Mhm.
Now
I get your point.
here also I'm only talking a lot, but I hope to give you the opportunity to disagree with me. And you can
True.
disagree with me. And
No,
I
I
would.
get your point. And actually, to that point, it's like it's not necessarily with a guru or a spiritual leader. It could be with anyone. You know, one of this Netflix series is about Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, and I don't remember the name of it, but they have these three guys who have squandered and left. But the people who work for Nirav Modi, they have so much of reverence for him. Just like, how could he leave us and go? And, you know, I wish he comes back and he could never be bad and he couldn't have done this. And, you know, they still hold him in so much of awe. So it's not necessarily that, you know, you have to be a spiritual leader or you have to be a
Yeah,
God man. It could be anyone. It's just the leader. And what happens is, even in corporate world, you look up to your CEO or something, you actually make you put them on a pedestal, you make them as gods, and you think, okay, this is what it is and he can never be wrong, and you just follow the policy so blindly because you have so much of faith and trust in those people. So it's not necessarily with, it's across, I guess it happens in the corporate world as well.
yeah, and it's like sometimes it's of no fault of the leadership. Okay, sometimes the leader is genuine in
Yeah.
wanting to cause social awakening, right? Sometimes the leader genuinely wants to serve, but uh, he might be giving subliminal messages, non-verbal messages, like worship me, like adore me. And these might be very, the leader might not be aware of these things, but these might be the messages being given, that I am the solution to your problems. These messages might be given, and when these messages are given, subconsciously people will respond to that, right?
Mm.
Uh, so it goes both ways. Both the projections of the people, what the people are projecting as their unfulfilled expectation of, let's say, a father figure, right? uh, or let us say a teacher, mentor figure. Now, you have certain expectations of a mentor, and perhaps those are traits that you have, right? I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a psychiatrist, and I was telling him, "You are so brilliant. You are so insightful," and I was giving him all of these compliments, and he told me in return, he replied saying, "It looks like you just describe yourself." I was like, "What? Really? Me?" He's like, "Yeah, you just describe yourself." And I was like, "Why do you say that?" He said, "All of those words you used, that's how you come across to me." So I realized those are my aspirations of what's the kind of a person I want to be. And when I was really admiring this person, I was projecting all of it on him. So I think we have something to think about for this week. And that's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed the series, Wild Wild Country. And I hope you enjoyed a little discussion and this uh, inputs, whatever I could share. I hope this gave you a perspective, right? Before we wind up for today, if anybody wants to share something, just feel free.
All the perspectives were really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. See
Okay,
you all.
doctor.
See you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.